Alright, so we have all our covers off, our intake, upper intake manifold off. As you can see, this thing is corroded with oil. This is a perfect sign of someone who does not change their oil the way they need to. And you see how it's all built up. Now the problem with that is, you know, all these little pieces here, like this piece here. See how that stuff just slides around in there? Floats around, and it just basically works to destroy your motor. So, and it clogs up the passages. See up under that. So much crud and stuff's in there. So that stuff has to be cleaned out before we can put it back together. You don't want to put this car back together with that stuff in there, because it's just basically when you take it loose, you know, this stuff breaks loose and it falls down in the motor and causes all types of problems. I mean, you see right there, look at that, that's just thick crud right there. Do not want that in your motors, people. Change your oil like you need to. So before we can put this timing chain stuff on here, we're going to have to clean this out so we can see the markings that we need in order to set it at top dead center as it's specified when doing this particular job. And you can see down there, you got oil corrosion there. And also, well, that tensioner is fed by oil. Alright, so if you're not changing your oil and the oil's all clogged up, corroded up, you've got all these chunks of oil floating through your passages, then this tensioner is not going to work right. It's going to cause this thing to out of time or get out of time. See how that oil build up back there? Oh my God, that is horrible. So, see back there in the back lower galleys, we have oil build up. And like I say, this is just a prime example of someone who hasn't changed their oil. And what's happened, because the chain hasn't got the proper oil that it needs, it's overheated and stretched. Alright, so we're going to get busy and get this thing cleaned up first, and then we'll take it apart. There you go. Prime example of oil sludge there. Look at that. And that's coming out of one of the ports. Wow. Alright, give me a minute. We're going to do a little cleaner. As you can see, even down here, it is just completely just oiled and cooked up there. We're going to get that cleaned up out of there so we can find no marks. Sprayed a little cleaner on it. Give you an idea what we're talking about here. We'll spray. So that's already coming off. See how that oil is being eaten off of there? Yeah. There's marks on these timing components that we can't see with all the oil and stuff there. There's one there at the bottom, as you can see. That little dimple there. There's other marks on every gear. So we'll have to get that cleaned out and cleared so that we can see that and set this stuff back up. And that's why we have to clean it. I have a cover here, and you see how dirty that is. So we're going to have to get some cleaner to clean that off as well. Because again, like I said, you don't want that old oil and stuff falling back into your motor and clogging up the passages. So we want to get that cleaned out. And also this old silicone and stuff that's on here, you know, you'll have to get that off as well, because you don't want that stuff, you know, making it harder for you to reseal this thing back together. Alright. And also notice there's a gasket on the back side of this plate. This gasket is a water gasket for the coolant. You do want to replace that gasket. If you buy the kit from the dealer's kit's going to have everything you need to put this particular job back together. It's got all the little O-rings and things like that, and the seals. It also has that gasket in there. So that way it gives you a complete job. You don't have to worry about, having leaks anywhere after you get it done. Alright, so here we have our kit for the 3.6 variable valve timing motor. I recommend that you get this kit from the dealer. There's the part numbers for you. And you see that little shiny thing that lets you know it's a genuine part from the dealer. Rather expensive. It varies depending on what dealer you call and get it from, but there's your kit. Alright, so on the inside of the kit, and then you'll see why we say we should get it from the dealer. Here you have the valve cover gaskets, which are new. Then you have all the gaskets that go on the actual timing cover, the front seal, water pump seals. There's a few more seals that go on the plate as well. In the kit you also have your tensioners. Okay, one tensioner. There's the other tensioner. The last tensioner. Yep. And of course the chains. Alright. And also, one thing about getting the part, that's all we have in the box. One thing about getting the part from the dealer, you'll notice the colored links on the chains. Okay. That's going to really help you when you go to put this job back together. And we'll get farther into that colored link on the chain later on in the video. But that's what's in the box. Now what's not included in that package, in that kit, are the tensioners. Not the tensioners, the guides. Alright, so the guides, come in separate. They sell them each separate. So there's that one, that one, that one. Got some more here as well. And these are your timing chain guides. Alright, so we're going to change all that stuff out, and then we'll show you where all these various parts go. If I get a chance, I'll go through and give you all the part numbers and stuff like that. But anyway, if you go to the dealer, they're going to have it anyway for you. And from time to time, those part numbers do change at the dealer because they'll upgrade the kit or downgrade. One thing that I did notice about the kit is they wanted to know whether your valve covers were plastic or if they were metal. I assume that if they're metal, it's going to change the actual valve cover gasket here. Probably going to change the shape of it or something. didn't really look into it. Doesn't really matter much. So we're gonna get back to this job, get this thing torn apart and put together, and get it back to running. All right, so back on our motor here, you'll notice that you've got 3 timing chains, and on a normal, typical situation of most motors, you can turn the motor till you get to top dead center where you need it, and all your timing marks will come eventually to, everything will be lined up. However, on this motor, it's not going to do that. No amount of turning this motor is going to get it to, top dead center, or get all the timing marks lined up. So, what we do in a case like that, or what I like to do is, I like to start down there at the bottom and make sure that I get this crankshaft pulley where it needs to be. And when I say that, I'm talking about that mark there. Okay? I want to get that mark to where it's going to be, or where it's supposed to be, whenever we're putting this bad boy together. And then the next thing I'm going to do, once I get that mark down there, I want to check these marks up here and make sure these two are close to where they're going to be. Alright, now when we take this thing apart, we're going to take this part apart first on this side. Alright, and then we're going to go down there and take that apart, and then that apart. But when we film that, we're going to take this apart first, then we're going to go down here, we're going to take this chain off, and then we come here and we take this chain off. Now, the reason that I want this where it needs to be when I put it back together is because when we put it back together, we're going to put this chain on first. Then we're going to put this chain on down here. Alright, and I want that to be relatively where it's supposed to be, because these up here I can line up. If I have that one already where it needs to be, then it's already set. I have a nice good set point. Alright, and it makes it easier to go on and proceed with the job to getting this chain on over here. So, as you can see, we have the motor broken down. We still have a little more cleaning to do. We're going to go ahead and do the chain because we've got this part cleaned up where we can see it. And we'll finish up some more cleaning on this bad boy. But as you can see how the chemical we use is eating away on that side. You see how it's still kind of dirty there. I concentrated more down here because I've got to be able to see this section here. And you notice these here are turn points for these camshafts. Alright. So, also, we're going to go ahead and take the spark plugs out of this car. That makes it easier so that you don't have to worry about building up compression. It makes it easier to turn the motor and set the timing on it. You could leave the spark plugs in, but with the compression on the pistons, it just becomes a little bit harder than what it needs to be. So go ahead and take those spark plugs out. And then, first thing we're going to do is go back here, and these are 10mm bolts. We'll be taking that tensioner off back there. Then we'll take this arm off, that arm off, and then we'll take the chain off. Okay, before we do that, we're going to get that bottom pulley down there where we want it before we whenever we're reassembling it. Now, so that we can raise this motor up and get a better angle on it, there are motor mounts here at the bottom. There's one here up under that oil filter, one in the back. Disconnect the bolts for that. Then you can use a jack, piece of wood, and you can lift the motor up at an angle, and that gives you closer. It gives you better access to the motor. All right, we're going to set all that up, and then we'll be back to filming. All right, so now as we turn it, we can see what's causing our noise here. And as you see, as you rotate the motor, the rear camshaft lobe is out of sync. All right, so we're going to have to set that back and get that properly torqued and addressed so that we don't have that. Now, in setting our timing, you'll notice that's our mark right there. Alright, for the crankshaft pulley. My favorite trick is to use a little bit of whiteout. Alright, We can access this mark down here at the bottom a little better. What we're going to do is we're going to paint that mark because you can see that a lot better than you can just the bare metal. Alright, so that's the one we're going to mark. Then we'll set all the rest of these up to their proper locations as we take them apart. Okay, so we have our mark set down there where it should be relative to where it's going to be when we put this back together. We can now proceed to taking this apart. See how that white paint shows up so good on that mark right there? It makes it just so much easier to identify. When we get to the other marks, we're going to paint those white as well so that we can see them. We're going to go ahead and get started and pull this thing apart. The first thing we want to do is we're going to release this tensioner here. We're going to take this bolt out, that bolt out. That's going to release the tension there, let the chain flop, and then we'll take these guides out and we'll proceed from there. One of the wrenches I love is this side angle impact wrench that I have. It's a Matco tool. It's basically a impact gun that's side that turns, it's at an angle. Good for close quarters. You need something really strong there, and it doesn't, you know, have the torque on your wrist like a regular ratchet would. So we'll pull these out. Those are the bolts for the tensioner. And this tensioner, I had to pry it off a little bit. It's tight. I'll have to get something to pry that off. I can't do it with one hand. We'll pry it off, but we can also take these off, which is also going to release the tension to it as well. Take your bolts, put them in a place where they're not going to get lost or damaged. We'll pull that off and then we'll get back to filming. Alright, so now we have our chain off. Our tensioner is off. Our guides are off. Now you can see the marks down there on that bottom pulley as to reference of where we're going to place that whenever we get started in putting this back together. And you can see we still have the oil and build-up. The tensioner for that side was actually broke. Once I finagled with it a little bit, this thing just shot out, broke all the pieces there. So had a bad tensioner on that side, and of course you can see the wear on the tensioner guides there. And that wear is caused from lack of oil, lack of the oil being changed. Of course you can tell that by the discoloration of it. Especially if you've been following this video from the start, it was dark and black, and now we've gotten it a little bit clearer. We're going to still have to clean these passages out, like those passages there. Oil seal off. And then we'll worry about getting that top portion cleaned off. Now that we have that done, the next tensioner that we will take off will be the tensioner at the bottom. That way we can release the chain there and there. And then we can come over and release the last tensioner, which is right there, and that'll take the chain off of that side as well. Okay, so here's the tensioner from the bottom main chain there. It was right there. And as you can see, this was not broken. It didn't shoot out and break all the pieces like the other one did. You see that oil passage there? That oil passage right there feeds oil onto that tensioner. Into that tensioner, you see there's a feed hole there as well. And that's why it's so important for you to change the oil in these cars. And notice right there, you see that little passage? If that gets clogged up with oil, then of course you can see all the bacon sitting there. But if that passage gets clogged up with oil, then it's not going to apply the proper pressure to this tensioner. Okay, when shooting that tensioner out to put proper pressure onto your timing chain, which will cause the timing to eventually jump. And if you can see right there, it's a little feed hole for the oil. So let's see if I can zoom in on that. You see that little feed hole right there? That's the feed hole for the oil. If that little hole is clogged up, then of course it's not going to be able to receive the pressure that it needs. You can see it right there. Okay. And looks like there might be one there. I'll clean it up, then we can really see the holes there. Of course, on the new one, you'll be able to see the holes too that I was talking about. So, like I said, that's why it's so important that when you're doing this job, you need to clean the motor up, especially if it's cooked up with oil. You need to clean that stuff up before you put it back together, because if not, you're going to have a premature failure on your job. All right, and notice how that one didn't shoot apart like the other ones. It just shot apart. I'll find the other pieces later. That's the timing guide for the top of that chain, or the main crankshaft of the chain. Notice once that comes off, that allows that to rotate. There's another guide here on the side. We'll take that one off. Now that we can rotate a little bit, we can go ahead and take that off. Now, these have marks on them as well when we're putting them back together. We'll be marking those out. And that's the bottom chain there. Of course, to get that off, you have to take the last pulley tensioner off, and then you can get the rest of that. All right, so now we've got our chains off on both sides. As down here, we're going to spray this down again, clean it out. We'll get those oil passages, those oil feeds cleaned out, so that the new chain will be able to survive and last a long time. And that's the last guide we need to take off there at the bottom. Alright, so we're going to do a little more cleaning, and then we'll proceed putting this thing back together. And you can see every one of those ports for the timing chain tensioners are full of that oil. So we'll get that cleaned up, and then we'll be back. Okay, as you can see, we've got these ports a lot cleaner here. Work on that one a little more. You can see that port is cleaner. There's some oil coming out of it as we speak. Little fine ones are up here. Those are cleaned out. I'm going to spray it down a few more times, get it a little more clean down in there. As you can see. And the back one. Alright, so now that we got it clean, we can actually start to put this bad boy back together. Like I said, we'll start with the timing chain on this side here first, and we'll go down to the crankshaft chain, and then we'll go to the right side chain. Now this is the left side, that's the right side. And I guess you're wondering, well, how do you know? I'm going to tell you a quick, easy way. Normally, in a normal car, this engine would face the front of the car, being that way, okay? If this engine were turned around to the front, that would put this bank on the left side, that put this bank on the right side as you're facing the car. So that's why I say this is your left bank, that's your right bank. We'll start with the left one first, do the timing chain next for the crankshaft, and then do the timing chain for the right bank. I'll get the parts. Okay, the first thing we'll start with is our timing chains. You'll see we have 3 timing chains for this particular application. We're going to, these are your camshaft chains. This is your main crank chain. Notice the marking on it. The yellow is going to go down on the bottom for the crankshaft mark, and the pink is going to go on the top for the 2 camshafts. And the exhaust, well, intake exhaust, and one will be One will be intake, one will be exhaust, or vice versa, depending on where we are on the car. So we'll get that loaded in. Get it set right. So now we'll set our chain up, and as you see here, this is where we're going to be, where we need to have how we need to have it set up. The drawing there. Okay, your top two cams there, located there, and your bottom one there. And like I said, these colored marks here will help you identify where that is. You'll line those colored marks up with the marks we have on the timing gear for the camshaft. Now you'll notice there's two marks there. And the reason for that, you have a beginning mark, and then you have the other marks that will line up once you rotate it to put the rear shaft on, the rear chain on. So we're going to use the first two marks first, and then once we get to the other chain, you'll understand what I'm talking about. All right, it's set up. We got it painted. Now on this particular one, you notice you have a triangle here and a circle there, and there you have a circle and a triangle. I tried to just paint the circle, with just a little dot, and I painted the triangle with a whole slab of paint there, so you can see the difference there. You would know the difference there. All right, so we're going to get that lined up and put on, and then we'll be right back. Now that we have our chain in place relative to where it's supposed to be, you'll notice this point is on the white mark. This point is on the white mark as well. Now we can place our guides in there, which will snug the chain up. That's the old guide, new guide. You can see the difference in the wear. Now that old one's going to wear in, and this of course is a new part. We'll put those in there, and that'll tighten it up, and then finally we'll put the tensioner in there, which will put the tension on it. The main thing before you do that, you just want to make sure that your tensioners or your guides and stuff are in the right place where they're supposed to be. All right, as far as your marking, there's your mark there on that one. There's another mark there on that one. The thing about these timing marks here, you see how you have that pink there, you have the pink there, and remember I was telling you about on there's a yellow at the bottom. So if you go down here and look up, you see that yellow there? But notice it lines up with that hole. There's a hole actually in the pulley so that you can see through and make sure that that yellow lines up. I can't really get my hand up in there the way I want to, but that's what that hole's for, so that you can see where that chain is lined up. Once you have all those points lined up, then you can go ahead and start putting your tensioners and your guides and stuff like that in there. Guides first, tensioner. Here's our old tensioner for that side, and our new tensioner for that side. You notice it has a pin in it. Oh, gotta use the screws. Notice it has a pin in it. What that pin does is it holds that tensioner recessed in until it's time to be used. And after you get it in there, then you pull that pin and it'll apply tension to the chain. We'll put that in and let's just see what that looks like. One quick note about those tensioners. Behind the tensioner, because these are oil tensioners, there is a gasket that goes in between the tensioner and the mounting point on the car. And that's because the oil comes out at pressure, so you need a gasket in between that to keep it from leaking out. So make sure you put your gaskets in there. There's the old one there. Alright, so now we have our tensioner installed in place. Our tensioner arm and our guide, chain guide for this side. Notice your marks there, lined up, there, lined up, and see if I can show you this. On the bottom, find that bottom mark, you should see the yellow chain link through that hole. Now I'm filming it so I can't really see this, but that yellow chain link should be able to be seen through that hole. And if it is lined up through that hole, then you've got it right. Once you get all those points right, then you know your chain is in the correct place. Then you can come out here, pull your tensioner. You heard that snap? See how tight all that is? It's tight. Now when you rotate it, you got the tension on it, it's going to stay in place. You need to rotate a little bit after you get that for the next step to get this chain on over here. Now that we have that chain on, we'll go ahead and put this chain on. First thing we're going to start with is replacing that little guide down there. Okay, so now we're going to put the crankshaft chain on, which is that chain there. You'll notice you have a yellow mark here, here, here. In between each one of these yellow marks is 15 uncolored marks, 15 uncolored links. So if you're confused about where to start or where it goes, don't worry. They're all equal distance from each other, so it really doesn't matter. The main thing that matters is make sure you put them on the correct marks where they're supposed to be. So we'll get started on that. Like I said, we have our left bank done. Now we're going to come down here. You see our bottom mark there. You can see the mark there. There's the line, and there's the hole there. So we'll put that on and let you see how that looks. There we go. Here's your yellow mark there. Line up with the mark on the pulley. That was lined up with that pulley. You go down here on the side, you see that one lined up as well. Now there's a train guide that goes in here that will pull that tight. There's also a tensioner that goes on the other side that will further tighten this chain down. We'll put those pieces on, and then we can finally move on to the right hand side. Okay, so we have our top tensioner, well, our top chain guide on. Notice our marks are still lined up there. And the one at the bottom there, and the one there. Once we put the tensioner on here at the bottom, the chain will tighten up and there'll be no more slack in that chain, and we'll check our marks again. You see a mark there, all that's correct and right. And then after we get that, then we can go to the back chain. I'll get the tensioner now for that. Okay, so now we have the top guide in, and our tensioner. Our marks are where they're supposed to be. Okay. The ones up there are where they're supposed to be. We can go ahead and pull our tensioner pin now. Notice how that adds tension to the chain. It keeps that tight. Again, check our marks one more time, just to verify and make sure. Lined up. Lined up. Now we can focus on this final bank here. And this job will be back done. Although there is a little bit of oil in there, I'm going to clean that out before we proceed. A little better. After you have this chain on and the crank chain on, you're going to have to turn. You're going to have to turn it to reach the next points, setup points for the right bank, because they aren't the same as the ones in the front bank. So you're going to shift your lines just a little bit. And to do that, basically stick the crankshaft bolt in there and you'll turn it. Before you turn it, check and see where your marks are. Okay, the first two banks right there, or your left hand bank and your crank. But then when you come over here to put the rear bank on, you notice how your marks change. For instance, that goes from there to there. This one goes around to the top. That hole comes down to the bottom. So you just need to turn it just a little bit, or turn to get it lined up, and then you can proceed to putting that rear chain on. So we're going to turn it, get it set up, and then we'll finish up. Put the chain. Have that turn. That's turn there. That's there. That's there. Get that mark there. So now we can focus on the rear camshafts. All right, put our marks in the appropriate places. We'll need to set these up and turn them to the correct points, and then we can set those up go along with the top. Alright, so I just want you to see where those current marks were. Here, it's down there. Now if you go a little too far, don't worry about it. Turn it in small increments. If you go a little too far, you don't want to go back through and turn it all the way back around. Do it in small increments, because when you're doing this rear, you can adjust it a little bit. The color links on the chain will help you to make sure you set it up right. Back to our right hand side. Again, you have the triangle and circle, circle, triangle. Okay? Alright, we're going to be using the triangles on this side. I think we use the circles on the other side. So we'll be using the triangles on this side. Coincide with the marks on the pink one. And then we'll check the bottom and make sure it lines up with the bottom one. Chain on, and then we do our tensioners. Same tensioners and chain guides, same way as we did on the other. So the pulley that you saw earlier, when we were rotating the motor, you notice this little piece here was spinning around, was ratcheting back and forth. A clear indication of that pulley that is bad. So we had to get a new one for that. Dealer part number. And what you'll see once we put this on the car and rotate the motor, you'll notice this plate isn't turning the way it was in the old one. So there's your new one. We're going to place that on the car. Notice that tab right there, that index tab right there is going to index into the camshaft. It's the exhaust. This is the exhaust side. So it'll stick into the exhaust camshaft. So you can't really make a mistake as far as putting this thing on. Then after you put it on, then you can set your timing. You'll want to torque that bolt to 45 foot-pounds onto the camshaft, and then you can proceed to put in your timing. Okay, so now we have our rear tensioner on, our timing chain on. Notice our mark is lined up with the points there, as well as there. That was lined up. See a little triangle at the bottom. Now the point at the bottom, this one was rather hard to get to. I'm going to give you a little tip on how to get that one pretty easy. You see how you have that line painted from the hole? I have the line painted above the hole. It helps you to line that up so you can see it good. You get your link right there in the middle of that, and that lets you know that you got that set. This one, with it being so far recessed in the back of the engine, is extremely hard to get to. It may take a couple tries to get that in there at the correct position. And of course, finally, once you have all that in there, then you can pull your tensioner pin like so. It'll apply tension to the chain around. Now this car is good to go. We can put it back together, put the covers on. Of course, we've got a lot of cleaning to do. Anytime you see a motor with this much oil buildup in it, burn on good. If you can get that stuff off and without letting it get down in the oil head, I would advise to do that. It won't do anything but like to make the engine last longer. So we're going to do some more cleaning now that we have this thing back together, the timing aspect of it together, and then we'll go through and we're going to put some more attention on this cover. Notice the cover has seals and stuff in it, O-rings, things of that nature. All those things will be replaced, and this cover is going to be cleaned up a little bit more too. Then we can put that on, and we can put the rest of the covers. Also, you notice the valve cover is just shot. It's just shot, so we will definitely have to clean that out. That's going to take a couple hours to get both of those good and clean. I was doing a little research on this, and they were talking about how, well, one of the reasons why this gets so clogged up and dirty is because it doesn't have good ventilation on the back port. In the front, you see that port right there, that lets you get a little ventilation, but of course, you see you're not getting much ventilation there. Also, along with that, this particular car owner didn't change their oil the way they need to at the intervals recommended. But, you know, that's always a must-do thing. Got to get that oil changed at a regular basis. That way you can avoid issues like this. So we're going to go ahead and put this together. Oh, here's that other valve cover. But anyway, when we look at the other valve cover here, this is the one in the back. You see how small that hole is? You see how gooked up all that is? Well, this engine cannot breathe with all that gooked up in that hole, so that'll have to be cleaned up. That's for the rear valve cover there. I'll try to use a little bit of cleaner to get up in there and clean that out a little bit. Of course, that is a PC valve. We might be able to change that out and put a new one in there. If not, we'll have to clean that port. And again on the front, we'll clean that port as well. See how much larger that port is there on that one, as opposed to the one on the little PCV valve one. So, I don't know if they offer a PCV valve with a larger hole in it, but we're going to figure something out. And like I said, you don't want to put this back on without cleaning it, because you see all this stuff, it just scrapes up. And all that will fall back down into your motor, which you don't want. Look at that. Alright, well, we're going to do some cleaning, get this thing back together and running, back on the road. Any questions, please post, chat, subscribe. Hope this was able to help you out. I'm not going to film the part of putting this thing back together. Might do a video on how to get it cleaned a little bit, but right now I just want to show you the main part of how to do the timing. Until next time, please share this with the world. Other than that, have a great night, YouTube. Now we're working on these valve covers. Let's see, look at this thick gook down there. Got it soaking in some chemical here. One of the things we like to use is O'Reilly's brake parts cleaner, because this stuff really eats this oil. This stuff is on here so thick. Take a look at that. Makes it sit. That's what it should look like. Right there, thick film in there. So all that stuff's got to come out of that, because if not, all that grit will fall down into the motor and just tear, just clog up the oil pump, which will cause the motor to tear itself up from the inside. So between brushing and the chemicals, we're going to get that cleaned up. By the time it goes back on, it'll look a lot cleaner and won't have all that grit on it. Yeah, the cover a whole lot cleaner. Next thing we'll do is we'll pop our seals out here, this O-ring here for the water pump, that seal and that seal. Those seals came in the kit that we got from the dealer, but look at all this oil buildup in these passages. Oh my gosh, we've got to get that stuff cleaned out of there. So we're going to clean it up a little more, and then we can proceed to putting this thing back together. Alright, so here's the rear valve cover for this particular car, and as you can see, it's just as caked up as the front valve cover is. We're going to use a little bit of brush on this to knock off the heavy stuff, and then we can use some chemical to get the other. As you can see, this makes a mess. Oh my God, it's just throwing oil everywhere. Alright, anyway, this is going to be a long journey, but we'll get this clean. Once we get it clean, then we'll come back to putting it on. Just mess with them. Alright. Okay, so now we have our cover a lot cleaner as what it was before. Now we'll go ahead and put our seals in there, our new seals, put our new O-rings in there. Got these valleys cleaned out in here. Our valve covers came out a lot better than what they were. Gonna need to do one more treatment on them to get them good. This part came in good. You can see that's just good clean plastic down there. This one came out pretty good too. Still a little more cleaning. You know, you don't want to get that grit down in that motor from the oil. So once we get that cleaned up, then we can go ahead and start putting the covers back onto this car, and we'll have it up and running. Okay, up under the motor, and as you can see from the bottom view, all that oil and stuff that was in the motor. What I really want to show you is how it comes out into the oil pan. You see all that grit there? Okay, that's the grit that was in the top of the motor. It's now in the bottom of the oil pan. So we got to get that stuff out. Took this screw loose so that we could look at the old pickup screen. So we'll pick that up. Get a glove on. Okay, so we'll pick up the old pickup screen. Oh. And oh my gosh, as you can see, it is clogged up there. And that's the reason why the car is not getting any oil. Okay, see that right there? All that gook and grime that was inside the motor built up on the screen. So of course, the pump cannot suck that up. And that is just thick crud that's built up inside that. Look at that. Ooh. So that's the reason for the oil starvation. And as you see, it's all down the pan. So we're going to actually replace this tube here. We're going to get a new one put in there. It'd be better than trying to clean it, because at this point it's so clogged up that we wouldn't really be able to get in there and get it as clean as we need to. So we'll get that, and this car will be back on the road and running good. I just wanted to show you that in case you got a car that's making like a ticking noise or something and you don't understand why. It might be, you might have an old clog screen, old pickup tube clog. Okay. Till next time, YouTube. If you have any questions or comments, please post chat. This was a continuation of a video I had done on how to fix the variable valve timing. 3.6 VVT motor, how to fix the variable valve timing on it. And this particular motor turned out to be another job, more intense job, because it had all the oil and stuff on the inside. The bottom half of the motor is actually kind of not too bad considering, but we're going to clean all that up and get it shiny. Put this car back together and we'll get her back on the road. Till next time, if you have any comments, please post, chat, subscribe, and share this with the world. Thanks for watching. Okay, so now we have a pan that is clean, and we have our new oil pickup tube. Notice the difference there. You see how you can see into the screen there? That's how you want it, alright? If that screen gets clogged up like it was, you're not going to get good lubrication. So that screen needs to be good and clear, as you can see there. Alright, so we're going to put this tube back in. Also, we've cleaned our pan so that we don't have to worry about any more debris getting sucked up in this tube. This goes back together like so, and then it'll bolt into the pan. On some cars, this tube is actually attached to the bottom of the oil pump, but as you can see here, it's got a seal where it seals up against there. So we'll put this back together and put this up in there, and we'll be good to go. Alright, so now we have our pan nice and clean, and we can go ahead and put that up back into the vehicle. We no longer have to worry about that grit getting pulled up into it. Until next time, YouTube, if you have any questions or comments, please subscribe and share this with the world, and like this video. Again, this is a reason why it's good to drop your oil pan.